Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Liverpool.com podcast. If you are a fan of Liverpool.com, thank you for coming over to the podcast and listening to it, or even on YouTube and having a watch. If you're not a fan of Liverpool.com, then you've missed out for the past 12 months, but we're really glad to have you on board on our journey. I'm Kristian Walsh. I am the host for today, and with me are Liverpool.com writers Joel Rabinowitz, Ollie Connolly, and Dan Morgan. How are we, gentlemen?
Doing good. It was doing great until we had the pre-game issues.
Yeah, just glad to finally get going.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's always no one actually writes a sort of a things not to do on your first ever podcast. But what you shouldn't do is reveal the fact that Dan Morgan had so many technical issues. We should have actually started recording this half an hour ago. And what we also shouldn't say is
doing podcasts since 2017. By the way, without one glitch ever. It was his first Liverpool.com one, and the whole world shuts down. So yeah, it might be a bit of an omen now.
Hopefully not. We so that you listen to this on the Blood Red channel. Liverpool.com is a part of, but not independent to the Liverpool Echo. So it's a completely different sort of podcast to Blood Red, a completely different one to Analyse Anfield, but hopefully you will enjoy it, and we'll sort of proceed. So first and foremost, we're going to have a little look at what's in the news this week, and even over the past 24 hours. The first thing that I want to touch upon, gents, is Timo Werner. Now, it feels like we've spoken, well, certainly written a lot about him over the past 2-3 weeks, certainly since he went to Chelsea. But he's been in the news over the past 24 hours. Bild broke the story that he wasn't going to play for RB Leipzig in the Champions League, and that has since been confirmed by the Telegraph's Matt Law. Joel, does this sort of make you feel like it's a good thing Liverpool didn't get him, or is this just another way of us telling ourselves it's all right, we didn't really want him anyway?
Probably a little bit more of the latter. I think it's funny with players who try and kind of, I suppose, force their way out in ways that you would say it doesn't reflect that well on him, I don't think. But then when it's a player that we want and we do get them, you sort of find it easier to kind of make excuses for it. Like I remember when all the Van Dijk was stuff happening in the summer of 2017, and I think he refused to play in sort of pre-season friendlies for Southampton. So when you want the player, you're sort of more willing to kind of accept that kind of behaviour because it paves the way for what you want to see happen. Obviously, Liverpool being on the other side of it with Coutinho, with the kind of questionable back injury had at the start of that season. So I think, with Werner, it's quite surprising. I think he's not actually guaranteed to be playing Champions League football next season yet. I think that's kind of something that's been glossed over in this whole thing that, Chelsea, it wouldn't surprise you if they got third or fourth, but then it wouldn't surprise you because of how condensed that part of the table is. If they don't come out of this restart that well, they slip down to kind of 5th, 6th or 7th. For him to kind of pass up the opportunity to play in a quarter-final is quite surprising. I don't think it reflects that well on him, but obviously he's quite keen to push it through as soon as possible.
It's a little bit mad maybe, Ollie, because Leipzig are probably the biggest dark horse in the Champions League still. They're through to the quarter-finals. You're going to write, as we're speaking, you're writing about the whole Champions League format in this sort of COVID-19 era, if you will. Sort of it replicates a World Cup. So you wouldn't be surprised if they could shock Man City or PSG in a 90-minute game. It seems a little bit of a weird one from him, doesn't it?
It's a little bit. I'm actually surprised people are so surprised. I mean, how long of a gap is there going to be between the Champions League final date and then what will be the restart of the next Premier League season? We don't even quite know the final details on that. And so for him to jeopardize or have anything that would possibly jeopardize this massive move he's going to make, I think he's basically playing the percentages of Leipzig most likely aren't going to go on and win the Champions League. And so why would I even play an extra 180 minutes or whatever it's going to be if I don't have to? So I get it from him. To me, it's like one of those classic Labour versus management things. And it's always funny that people seem to side with management, even though almost everyone watching is Labour. If you had this opportunity for this new contract and you had a couple of weeks left with your current company, but you're making this massive move, you'd probably be like, well, why do I need to go and do extra work on that, like overtime, basically, if I don't actually have to, because the transfer can be set for this specific date.
Yeah, I remember not going in on my final day at a previous company as well. So maybe not the wages were the same. But I made sure that I left the laptop the day before my final day, just so I had an excuse. Shouldn't really admit that, should I? Dan, we'll talk a little bit about Werner, but also I want to sort of weave it into Mohamed Salah. He was 28 on Monday. Obviously, they would have potentially played together for Liverpool if a move would have happened. I suppose first and foremost, I mean, you wrote yesterday about Salah and sort of the phenomenon that he is. Do you feel like little things like this with what Werner does, and by all accounts, Klopp was sold on him, spoke to him, not in person but over a Zoom call. They were all very happy with him. Does this sort of thing maybe say to Klopp, well, do you know what? Actually, I'm happy with the guys I've got. I'm happy with the hand I've been dealt here, because that's not necessarily the thing I want to do. Joel brings up Van Dijk, and I think that's a fair point, but I don't think he certainly didn't refuse to play a sort of a competitive full-time fixture for Southampton. This feels like a real big step, and maybe something where Klopp really sort of has that infamous rule of no idiots, to paraphrase it. This is the sort of thing where he goes, well, I've got Salah, he's a nice fella, and he's football as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sort of come across as a bit holier than thou with this, as I don't with many things Liverpool related, because it's very easy to do so. But it does feel very, early Abramovich, Chelsea. This feels very Bruce Buck behind the scenes, sort of dictating what you would call quite strategic, indirect ways of finding advantages that aren't always on the pitch. And that's not to disparage the character of Timo Werner in any way, because none of us know him, and I think that's very important to say. And there's we can talk about reasons why Liverpool didn't sign him, but there's obviously a reason Liverpool did want to sign him, and I'm sure that due diligence in terms of character and what's he like and what does he do will all have been looked at. In terms of Salah, I think the thing with Liverpool's squad, not just the front three, is that they've got an abundance of individuals who can be looked up to at any one time as role models for their own nation, for their own religion, for their own demographic. And I think anyone sort of aspiring to that is good, first and foremost, but it's very hard to do. When you've got sort of the precedent being set by African footballers such as Salah and Sadio Mane, then to sort of, I don't think it'd be fair to put any kind of that responsibility on anyone else, and not the players themselves, because it's not something they do to say, oh, look at me. It's just the nature in which they've sort of taken their careers and the responsibility they have with them. And I think all of it just sort of comes into this culmination of that. Yeah, Timo Werner's probably an all right lad. He's probably being advised by Chelsea and then his own advisors to take this course of action. And it's been weighed up by everyone that this is right for the move to Stamford Bridge. And what that move looks like, we just have to sit back and watch now and sort of move on from. We've been joking about it on the site, haven't we? Every day on meetings, talking about how we're sick of seeing Timo Werner's name and sort of downloading his picture every day and stuff like that.
There's only so many shots of him in a Leipzig shirt.
I found a cracker of him in a Germany kit the other week. Honestly, it might be the greatest achievement in the last 12 months, to be honest. So yeah, I think there's no better way to sharpen the focus than going and win the Premier League, to be honest.
Really interestingly, actually, I mean, we put a little poll up on Liverpool.com's Twitter, which is at Liverpool.com_, and we sort of asked, what topics do you want us to discuss on our first podcast today? And sort of, spoiler alert, we were going to talk about all of them anyway, but we were just really interested to see what people were interested in. 4% said Timo Werner, which is when we sort of, everyone, I think everyone has zoned out on him. I think we see that from a analytical point of view, Google Trends, and not to pull back the curtain too much, but we have these little levers we can pull and see what fans are actually interested in. Timo Werner is very much, his stock is going down with Liverpool fans. I think people are starting to accept it. But people are still on the Salah bandwagon, Dan, and I'll sort of throw it back to you as one of the two people on this podcast aged 28 or above. I'm not going to reveal who the other one is, but it's not hard to guess. What do you feel is next for Salah? Do you think he's hitting his prime? Do you think it's before his prime, after his prime? Where are we at with a 28-year-old Mo Salah?
I think it'd all do us all a bit of good to just stop and look at the fact that he's 28. And I think that primes can come in different senses. Centre-backs especially, keepers, different times. As the amount of footballer players had, for example. I wonder if there's just as a side note, I wonder if there's a look back at this period in the next few years as a blessing to some players' careers, that they've had 3 months off that they would not ordinarily get. You think of Firmino would have played this summer. You would have had AFCON. We're hoping that's getting pushed back. It looks like it will, but we're hoping it will. And you sort of see that prolonging of a player's career maybe through this period. But that's where Salah sort of, for me, comes into his own. And that's where I think you do have to compare him to your elites, your Messis and Ronaldos, because he's never injured. And I'm touching wood saying this, but there's a reason he's in phenomenal condition, and it's because he has worked unbelievably hard on physical strength and core strength and the ability to recover and understand his body through games of football. And I think that's what's taken him to the next level at Liverpool. Wasn't that long ago when he signed for Liverpool and people were saying he was back up for Sadio Mane, and people came in and seen 40 goals in a season as being purely ability based. A lot of it was down to what he'd done to himself physically and how he prepared himself physically. So I think when we're talking about prime, what I wrote in the piece yesterday was, if you were to look at Mohamed Salah now as the player he is, but a player who signed for Barcelona in 2017 and not Liverpool, then by God, you'd be wishing that you had him first and foremost. But secondly, you'd be saying Barcelona are boxed for the next 4 years. They are absolutely boxed. And I think that's where we have to start having a bit of a rethink as to how we look at Salah, because there seems to be a very quick notion to move to selling him or moving him on, or a perception that he wants to move on. I think we should be building a team around him and Sadio Mane for the next 4 years. And that's not to disparage Roberto Firmino in any way. But I think they are Liverpool's two physical and technical key attributes. And I think that they should be the players who Liverpool prioritise in terms of nailing down, keeping fit, and ensuring that they stay on top of the game.
You said let's forget the fact that he's 28, and we are going to, but my next question is predicated on that. So let's remember that he's 28 for a moment. Likewise Sadio Mane, likewise Roberto Firmino, they're all 28 now, but this isn't a bad point. This is a good point for them. You look at some of the world's best strikers now, and you've got Robert Lewandowski, who's over 30. You've got Lionel Messi, who's obviously an absolute freak. Likewise Ronaldo, but they're 33 and 35 respectively. You look at some of the players. Thomas Muller, I think he's 30 years of age as well. It's not this situation anymore where 24, 25 is kind of regarded as a peak, is it, Ollie? In terms of, I think as Liverpool have always had Owen and Torres and Fowler, and it felt like their peak sort of came when they were 20. For Fowler, it was arguably when he was 21, 22. Owen, it was 22, 23. Torres maybe 25, 26. But by the time they all hit 28, they're either not at the club or they're very much on the way out. Liverpool have probably got to recondition themselves here, both as supporters and maybe as a club, to say 28 isn't actually that old anymore, not with the sports science around, and also with what strikers can do nowadays when they're well into the 30s.
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that so much of his game is predicated on the electric pace. I think people worry, will that slip at some point? And guys just don't decline like that as much anymore. And if you look at his five-year non-league non-penalty goal stretch, which is about like someone in the prime of their career. What were they? Their absolute apex. It stands at 92 right now if you take 2015 to 2020, which is 11th all time in this kind of modern era across all of Europe's top leagues. So if he just keeps up his regular rate, say 22 goals a year, 20 for the next couple, it's just gonna be him, Lewandowski, and Messi. That's it. Even Ronaldo doesn't have a run like this of non-penalty league goals. Just now, he's ahead of the likes of Jamie Vardy and Ciro Immobile and Neymar and Bale in just his Liverpool run. So what we're witnessing, I was thinking about this when I knew we were doing this. I went back and ripped through a bunch of his goals from the last 2 seasons. He doesn't really have like a one-off style of finish, which I think is what's going to let this thing go. There's a lot of the dinks and stuff, and there's a lot of placing the ball in the net, but it's not like it's this one style that we always talk about where Firmino drops out, there's the spacing behind, the two of them darting behind. It's not just that. There's all different kind of finishes. Dan spoke about the strength and the United goal and the Watford goal, and that stuff is not just going to evaporate in the next 24 months. So I think that in terms of looking for the future, they absolutely need to do some kind of planning, and with just the volume of football that's going to come down and the reset into the calendar, it would be improper for them to not try and find some fresh legs to spell them. But I don't see why this peak wouldn't last for at least another 2-3 years.
I was watching that United goal yesterday, actually, and I didn't realise at the time, but it was Daniel James who's trying to chase him. Who's an absolute 100-metre sprinter, and it's basically two quick lads, sort of in a foot race.
Yeah.
But what he's got and Daniel James hasn't at this point in his career is that strength and that sort of body position. It was incredible. Just really quickly on Salah, and then we'll move on slightly to one of his former teammates. What's going through Dejan Lovren's head? Because he must know it's coming to an end soon.
Yeah, it's one of like those sort of unexpected. I think we all have a kind of an assumption of the players that will be friends. We all know that like Henderson and Lallana are good mates, Milner as well. Robertson and Trent obviously have their thing going on, and I think there's a funny dynamic there because I think Lovren is seen by many as sort of this. I don't want to be too harsh, but not quite a joke figure as such. But you know what I mean. He's kind of towards the lower end of a popularity scale amongst the Liverpool fan base, and then Salah's right at the other end. And Salah's right at the other end, and knows. Yeah, whenever you see Liverpool doing the inside Anfield, the training clips on Instagram, they're always kind of making jokes about buying each other coffee and the fact that Salah doesn't pay for Lovren's coffee or whatever. And yeah, it's quite funny. I remember Moreno was there as well. He was another one who sort of like the fans weren't that keen on, but then he was obviously very close friends with the likes of Coutinho and Lucas and Firmino. So it's funny you see like the kind of the dynamics there, but like the ability of a player obviously has no kind of impact on kind of the relationship they have in the squad. So yeah, I expect Lovren. This is probably the last we'll see of him in these next 9 games. He wanted to leave last summer, didn't he? And Klopp basically told him, "No, sorry, I want you for this season." And in fairness, he's done a job on a few games where we need him to. So yeah, I'm sure Mo would be devastated when that finally happens.
I think it shows. Sorry, go on.
Doesn't he just feel right for one of those Chris Smalling, like he goes to Lazio or someone, people only ever see 4 games and he's all right. And I was like, you know what? Dejan wasn't, it's a full centre back. He wasn't the worst. And it's like, nah, go watch the Watford game again. He's awful.
We're in Europa Leagues with Sevilla, that type of thing, absolute hard man back in Spain. I think it's an elite mentality from Salah because I don't mind Lovren, but I don't think I could put up with that shtick day in day out on social media. I really think I'd struggle. And fair play to Salah. It's also like like when you were in school and it was kind of like like sort of you'd have someone who tried to be your best mate and you didn't really want to be. It's just like just leave me alone. I'm sort of. It's just that we take biology together. It's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not really your mate. We get the bus together. It's fine. You're not coming to mine to sleep over. It just feels I'd be very much like that. So fair play to Mo Salah. I think it shows that he's a lovely fella to put up with Dejan and his interest in social media activity. Just really, really quickly around Coutinho. I mean, what is news? What isn't news around Philippe Coutinho? I don't know. In reports in Spain are saying that Barcelona are pretty much ready to get rid. I don't really think that's news. I think everybody knows that. I think the newsworthy bit if we are to believe it, is that they would be willing to take around 40 million for him. Simple question to all three of you. Philippe Coutinho, 40 million, yes or no?
No, not 40. By the way, that's a funny thing because Barcelona are flat out broke. I'm not sure the general public understands that they are. It's not like they just don't have money. They need like auditors because they have no cash. So to like start negotiating from a point of view of 40 million is laughable. It's like, no, you would take 11 if that, whatever the number is we decide is what you will take to take that wage off your hands. 40 to me, particularly when you have all that leverage, and just no one appears interested. I think that's daft. I think some kind of low deal is the only thing that would make sense for 1 year because of just all the uncertainty and what have you, and then maybe spelling the front three. But I don't think a permanent deal makes sense in any logic.
No, not for me. From a different perspective, I think there's too much Liverpool water under the bridge. And I think if we look at what position he comes back into, I think we'd all agree he's sort of an 8.5 in a Klopp system. So you have to then factor in, your Naby Keitas, Takumi Minaminos, Curtis Jones of the world. And I'm sure there'll be people screaming at YouTube saying, well, we need as many good and quality options as possible. But I think we do have to factor these players and look at other priorities for us. I think there's too much water under that particular bridge for me.
What do you reckon, Joel?
Broadly in agreement. I wouldn't take him for 40. I think if Liverpool are passing up on the 23 or 24-year-old Timo Werner for 54 million or whatever it is, they're not going to be paying 40 million for. I think he turned 28 the other day, Coutinho. Yeah. Before all of this, I wouldn't have even entertained the conversation around him. I think now that we know Liverpool are probably not going to be making any real major permanent signings this summer, if there was somehow a way where we could get him on loan for a year with Barcelona paying most of his wages, and he came in purely on a proviso that he's kind of effectively a handyman who'll do some games on the left-hand side as a sort of Mane deputy. He can do some games in attacking midfield in certain situations. I wouldn't be averse to it if the circumstances were right, but in terms of 40 million at this stage, I don't see it.
Okay, so where does he start next season? One word answers, please.
China.
Not. I've heard worse shouts.
AC Milan.
AC Milan.
I'm going to say he stays at Barca. I think.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Newcastle.
Oh wow.
Oh.
I think I'm going to go Newcastle.
It's like the Adrian Mutu of the Saudi era.
Absolutely. The Rabinho. He'd be the Rabinho.
Would be the Rabinho, yeah.
Just a little less timber. Okay, just finally in the news, what we want to do with this segment every week is obviously we want to talk about Liverpool things, but we think it's important that we, Liverpool.com as a website does this a lot, and we as writers like to do this as well, and it's looking at other things around the news and how it reflects on Liverpool to a degree, but just in general. And Marcus Rashford, Manchester United striker, England international, of course, released an open letter, if you will, asking for, I think it was 1.3 million school children in poverty to continue their free meals. Our wonderful Conservative Party, and that is absolute sarcasm before anyone throws the laptop through the window, said no, and then they obviously got a little bit of a whiff of the public backlash on that, and have now done a U-turn. I think what this mainly says is one, Dan, that Marcus Rashford is a really good fella. I think two, not only him but a lot of footballers are really good people. But also three, the power at the moment that footballers have in this weird world that we're currently living in, and sort of how they can use their platform for change.
Yeah, and I think it's a fingers burnt scenario for this government, because we know that very early on into the lockdown in England that they see an open goal to sort of deflect, which is something they've been very good at, onto footballers, and by saying that they should be contributing more to the NHS, and basically seeing them as the stereotype that many did, really, and that they were young, privileged, uneducated, men who didn't really care about anything else than picking money up and playing football once a week. And I think that we've known for a while that stereotype is wrong, and it's been uneducated. And I think that there's been a sort of corporation-wide strategy in muting footballers over the years and not giving them the trust to go and campaign and use their voice for the things that they believe in. And that in turn has, devastated reputations of footballers that have had a lot of good to give, and therefore, that inevitably spills onto some fans and onto some terraces. And that's not me making excuses for any behaviour, by the way. But I think that this legacy of lockdown, I think, will almost now be defined by the fact that it is the time in where footballers stood up and had enough and used their voice. And Marcus Rashford is an absolute credit to this country in that sense. And I think that, to be honest, he's another example of, in this argument, this government picking the wrong battle. Because what they can't do with a Premier League footballer is cast them off as a shadow minister or as another party with another agenda. They are young, educated, socially and diversely aware young men who have a huge ear, a huge platform, and who have the attention of the nation, and a lot of people who idolise them. So we've seen with America that Donald Trump's already fighting a losing battle in this sense, and predictably he's fighting fire with fire. I think what you're seeing here is the Tory party backing down on that sense of confrontation and for me, quickly admitting defeat, which is surprising in one sense. But if it means that 200,000 young kids in this country are going to get school dinners and free school dinners, then it's welcoming. And I think that we should now be encouraging these footballers to use their own voice and not rely on somewhat tokenry campaigns like Kick It Out, which have never gone far enough in terms of acting on words to do the actions that are required. So we need to give these footballers their collective voice that they've created to take things forward, for me.
And Ollie, we've seen that a little bit in the NFL, haven't we, in terms of Colin Kaepernick and, very recently Roger Goodell, who's the NFL commissioner, in a very sort of, you'll know this far better than I will, but it felt to me it was one of the first times really that sport as an organisation has engaged with the Black Lives Matter movements. Obviously, this is a different thing to what Rashford's doing with free school meals, but it's the idea of, politicising things and sort of fighting for what is right in society. If these players take a stand, not literally, obviously, because they're taking a knee, but if they take a methodical stand against this sort of thing, we've seen it in America and we might be able to see it in the UK as well.
I would hope so. I think what was so amazing about the Rashford stuff, me and Dan were talking about this earlier, is just the lack of defensiveness from 20-year-olds when they came under attack from the government really early on, as Dan said, trying to pass the buck on something that had absolutely nothing to do with them, pitting the classic nurses versus football players, which is just unconscionable. And they didn't take the bait. They said, no, we're not going to get down into that mud and have that fight with you. I'm going to bring a real issue that I really care about, that I've done all kinds of work on, that I probably know more about than half of the people who are actually involved in making this decision. And was eloquent about it and got the job done. And it's really amazing. What we're seeing all over the shop is just player empowerment, people understanding, like Dan, saying their own voices. And I couldn't welcome it more.
Joel, you wrote about Marcus Rashford as well. It would be nice to see when football is back to normal, whenever that is, and we've got fans, whether they're socially distanced or not, back at Anfield. It'd be nice if there was some sort of recognition. And you hope, both during that game, but I suppose the wider point is, when footballers return, people maybe take a step back and realise that a lot of these people were fighting for the right causes.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's something that, obviously, in the next few days, conversations are going to shift back towards actual football and what these players are doing on the pitch. People are going to be talking about Rashford's goals that he's scoring and what Henderson's doing for Liverpool and all the other players who've done things over this period. But I do think it's important that, we kind of remember what they have done and how they've stood up here. And I think as well, on the one hand, you're absolutely right to praise him, and it's a brilliant thing that Rashford's doing, but it's also it's the reflection of where we're at. But you literally got a 22-year-old professional sportsman who's basically telling his government what to do and to stop letting kids starve. I mean, I think if you saw that, I don't know, Serge Gnabry Havertz was having to do the same thing in Germany, or German footballers are being told to fund their national health service. I think it's also kind of a reflection of where we're at as a society in the country, that they've had to do these things. But again, they absolutely deserve all the recognition. And I think it puts into such kind of perspective, really. We're going to move back into kind of a world of rivalries and tribalism again to some degree. But the fact that, he's a Manchester United player is frankly irrelevant in the context of this. He's a young man who's standing up for what he believes in and doing something that, again, shouldn't be his responsibility to do. But the fact that it has, within 24 hours of that letter going out, has actually had the impact that he intended it to have. And you've seen so many people supporting him from all over, even outside of football, people who probably don't even know who Marcus Rashford was, no interest in football, really supporting that is a great thing. And like Dan said, he's a credit to United, but he's a credit to the Premier League and sort of English football as a collective.
I did plumb for us signing him, by the way.
You did? It's in the archives. It's in the archives.
There's a piece somewhere on Liverpool.com about why we should sign Marcus Rashford, so just saying.
I would say also, he would do. I would say also there's just... Rashford is his own kind of situation, and there's immense courage in what he did, because he wasn't doing a campaign that was already at the forefront of the public consciousness. He stuck his head into the mainstream right-wing media buzzsaw, because if they just wanted to go on the attack, it's really hard when, it's kids not eating involved, obviously, but they are not above getting down in the mud to take this guy down. So the courage and bravery involved in that is astounding. But with some of the other stuff and with what's coming now with Black Lives Matter, I really just, and I know that fortunately it's been discussed a lot, real actionable stuff. The guy, the pioneer, Colin Kaepernick, for all sports figures on this, he did it. He took the sacrifice. That was courage. It's not courage now to release a statement in your notepads and put it on Twitter, or even be a company like Nike and get involved now. Courage was at the start. Now you have to come through with some real actions and real weighty stuff, not just putting it out in the next couple of weeks because it's in the news, really sitting down and thinking through what can we change systematically to help football and just help society as a whole. So that's what was so brilliant about Rashford's thing, is that he was not getting involved in something that he was just joining onto a movement that was already underway. He was pioneering his way on a topic that hopefully we see other football players, when they're really interested and it's really meaningful to them and they have real life experience and it's in a thing that they really care about, that we'll see them get involved in their community and on a national stage.
Well said, Ollie. And that is what was in the news this week. So we're going to move on a little bit. We're going to basically have a different section every week. And we'd be really interested in your thoughts and what you'd like to hear us talk about. Sort of we're open for anything. So make sure you're always following us on Twitter and at us at Liverpool.com_ on our Facebook page as well. Just type in Liverpool.com. You can always send us a message on there, and obviously send any of our writers on here a message as well. But this week, I thought football's back, actual tangible football. I think I figured out that we've written about 600 articles since football was suspended. Between a core of four of us, we've obviously got Josh Williams and David Hughes who help out. We've got a couple of other people who've been really helpful for us, but it's a pretty much it's been an incredible sort of nearly 100 days since Liverpool's last football game. But with 9 games to go, it was suspended with Liverpool having played 29. I thought we could just look at the Premier League season in general, Liverpool's last 9 games, and maybe we could round it off a little bit with a couple of our crazy predictions, hot takes, however you want to look at it, around between now and the end of the season. So I suppose the first thing for me, Joel, is when do you feel like Liverpool are going to lift this trophy, and are you as excited as you would have been otherwise?
To answer the first one, I think they'll do it in the first 2 games back. I'm not expecting any favours, unfortunately, from Arsenal tomorrow night. So I think we can write off, well, I'm certainly writing off a derby win in the first game back. But yeah, I think in general what we've seen, I've watched a lot of the Bundesliga games since that's restarted, and in general, the better teams have won, and Liverpool are a lot better than Everton, and are a lot better than Crystal Palace. And they've obviously, you'd expect them to be at the kind of upper end in terms of the physical levels that they'll be at going back into this restart. And obviously the motivation factor is there. They're going to be more fired up than anyone else to go out and get this done. Because as much as we don't want to think about it, you just want to get it wrapped up before anything else goes wrong now. So I think they'll get it done in the first 2 games. What was the second part of your question there? I've completely lost it.
Does it mean anything, Joel? Do you care?
It's funny. I've kind of gone not full circle in this, but I remember writing something near the start after the Atletico game, and we knew that we weren't going to be seeing Liverpool play again for a long time. That ultimately this was just football, and that's something that we had to deal with, and there was much more important things going on. I've kind of found over this period, kind of the longer we've gone without it, the more it's kind of emphasised how important it is. And I think it's very easy. I think a lot of people have said throughout this period, the line that, it's only football or it's only sport and stuff. But then you realise when you go that long without it, that kind of, those are the things that a lot of people live for. And, it's not as important as life or death. We know that, the Shankly quote, everyone knows that one. But yeah, to me, it's kind of re-emphasised how much it means. And I think obviously it's not going to happen in a way that we want it to happen, but I've kind of long ago accepted that. I think it's funny, you go back to March and the kind of dystopian scenario. I think you messaged us once saying that, the Premier League's going to go behind closed doors, and we were all like, oh God, that's awful. We're not going to have that moment. Now we're absolutely delighted at the fact we're going to be able to see Liverpool play again at all. So yeah, I think it's going to mean loads, obviously. I think as well, something they'll probably come on to in future weeks, but having that motivation that they'll want to win it again in front of fans next season. So I think this one is just about getting it done, getting that trophy in the cabinet, because to go through the kind of, I never really thought that the void thing was actually going to happen. I think that was pretty obvious from all the meetings that was never really something that was being considered, but I think we'd all be lying if you said you didn't have a little bit of worry at one point if we were going to see this season played out. So I think to have gone through that sort of slight peril, which wasn't there when when you're 25 points clear and coasting, and then you have this sort of completely unexpected weight. It will, I don't want to say it will feel sweeter than it would have done, but there's a sense of relief that wasn't there to begin with, definitely.
There was definitely a flap, wasn't there, when the Dutch decided to just call it off? I feel like that was a real day when it was like, nah, let's not start making this a thing. And then the French league did it, but PSG
that afternoon was terrifying. Do you reckon those 2 leagues now are looking at themselves being like, wait, we did what? Can we start back up everyone's sound?
Mbappe, get back in. Yeah, they must be looking at that and going, do you know what? We did jump the gun a little bit too quickly here. But then, fair play to them. They're probably thinking, they're probably looking at at the Bundesliga now and going, couldn't be bothered with that, Yeah. I just absolutely, disinfectants on balls. Nah, not for me. It's interesting you say, Joel, about sort of like the moving into the next season and sort of that, having that sort of that thing to go for next season, having that incentive. Ollie, do you feel like it's going to be both an emotional and a physical thing, this, then, if Liverpool can wrap this up as quickly as possible? It just becomes about next season. I know Joel wrote something about the records that can still be broken. But I don't know about you, but I just don't feel Klopp will care. I think Klopp would rather give Harvey Elliott 100 minutes than Liverpool win 100 points.
I agree. I think they're absolutely looking at it as one long season now. In the middle of it, they'll pick up the trophy one time, but the aim is to go and get it the next time in front of the fans, hopefully, if that's there. And if you just look at it coldly, this is one of the best things that could happen to them in terms of having a dynasty or having like a long run where it doesn't disintegrate pretty quickly. One, you just get, like you said, the emotion not of it being almost taken away, or just the robbed of the feeling of having it with the fans after so long. But they're just going to have a better chance to use load management or figure out a schedule of how do you play 3 games if they really shorten next season, or however they try and set the timetable for that. They're just going to have an advantage where they can try and experiment different things that other teams that are scrapping for points are just not going to be able to do. So I think that it will, in a strange way, really help them in the long run, and they'll just view it as one long season now.
It's going to be weird, isn't it, Dan? Even though we've been talking about this, it's going to be strange.
Yes, it is. It's going to be our own measure of normality, I think, applied. But I think for us, I think we've probably got it easier than many in that we have this thing to go and do. We have this achievement to go and make our own after 30 years. I think this is Liverpool's most important title win in the history, to be honest. I think, given everything that's gone on, I mean, I know we've just been talking then about whether we felt or not it was actually ever in danger. I went every Friday just thinking, okay, we've survived a week without it not being null and void. And that must have lasted, it felt like it lasted an eternity, but it must have lasted a good 6 weeks. And I don't think it was without justification. And mainly because we were getting no sound bites from the Premier League and nothing seemed to be changing for so long. I think this could only happen to Liverpool. That's the other thing. Is that this is quintessential. Not to take anything away from what is a true devastating health crisis, but this is quintessential Liverpool in the sense that it needed some adversity, it needed some kind of peril attached for it to be sort of native to what we're used to. And I think it'll be a huge let-off. And I think it'll be a huge let-off for the players and the supporters in their own environments. But I think that there is then that desire to bring it all together as one. But when the books are written on this in years to come, and when the interviews are given about this time, I don't think it should be lost on any of us just how big this title win is, and how we should, damn right we should celebrate it, by the way. Damn right we should do everything in our power to embrace every sinew of it, because it's ours and because it's going to be ours for the history books in terms of the way in which it was written. So Klopp's right when he says we'll have our moment and we don't care how we look when we have it.
Just like to put a disclaimer on what Dan said there. All of that absolutely asterisks with 2 meters distance between us.
Absolutely.
I would say as well, I've written this before, but as we get further away, I do think Leicester away will just become the moment. And that's what I'm having trouble with my own emotions as we get back to play here. It's going to be 2 games. So it's going to be 4 or 5 days. I feel like, am I going to be faking it if I get emotional now? Because I've accepted it so long ago. And my real emotional day was Boxing Day. It was Leicester away. I was like, oh, wow, it's actually happening. I've said that so many times, and now this is the one, finally. And then I don't know how you guys feel, but on that day, now, I don't think there'll be tears now, because it's just been so accepted. And it won't be so like jarring, like, holy shit, they actually did it.
It's kind of like, I've had a lot of Liverpool have won the league nights this season. It's sort of even the Brighton game where Alisson gets sent off and Adrian comes on and they hang on. That was a massive one, because I think City drew 2-2 with Newcastle earlier that day. There was just loads and loads and loads of games like that. Boxing Day was a massive one. Man United at home, Leicester even. Leicester at home was a big one with that last minute penalty. There's just so many of those games. Even Bournemouth to a degree. That was the last time Liverpool were at Anfield in a Premier League game. They just had you wouldn't say a wobble, but they had just been, sort of beaten by Watford, beaten by Chelsea. And it was just kind of like, well, they will win it, but if they were to lose this, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable than they wanted to. They go 1-0 down, come back to win 2-1, goal cleared off the line by Milner, all of that sort of thing. It's interesting because with the Champions League, it's that moment, isn't it? It's that sort of moment of elation. And obviously it all builds up beforehand, but when Origi puts that goal in, it's that moment of release. There was a real possibility there that Liverpool win their first Premier League title in 30 years, not in the dramatic way people expected it, not in the way, Aguero and anything like that, but rather passing the ball around the back, 3-0 up against Crystal Palace. And there would have been an incredible moment at Anfield. Everyone would have been singing champions and now you're going to believe us. Would have been incredible. Would have been a really good night out, really good party. But as you say, Ollie, it feels like it's just been one big title procession, and that's because the 25 points clear. So apart from maybe them when they would receive the trophy against Chelsea, and when they would maybe have the last game of the season against Newcastle in any potential records he broke, it would have been a bit of a strange thing just to watch this procession play out.
Old school Reds, sorry to jump in, old school Reds will tell you that winning a league title is a body of work, and it comes over a certain period of time. And I think what struck me is it's not an actual football moment, i.e. it's not like a last minute goal that makes you think that's when we've won it. For me, it's the moment that you realise that you're better than everyone else. And for me, oddly, mine was Salzburg away. In that, after Salzburg away, I just sat back and said, this team's mentality is, it won't be beaten. Salzburg away was the biggest banana skin of a game in the last 10 years for anyone. You know, it was there to be rolled out, and Liverpool had made it that way, but they were primed to be knocked out the Champions League a year after winning it. And all the headlines were written, you know, the lad who's getting lauded as the most potent striker in Europe was giving it the big one about what he was going to do and what he wasn't. And we just went and won 2-0, and we completely dominated. And that was the moment for me. I actually got a bit emotional after the game and thought, I'm watching something, forget football, I'm watching a group of people surpass what I could expect out of anyone as human beings in terms of a mentality and an approach. And I think that's what wins you the league title, is when you realise you're better than everyone else.
Just sorry to jump in as well, but like I think it's a thing that everyone's got their own sort of moment. The Leicester one, I think that Ollie points out to on Boxing Day, is perhaps the most kind of momentous one for everyone. Obviously, United at Anfield with the Alisson and the Salah moment there. But mine was another weird one. I know Dan picked Salzburg there, but like mine was almost the period between Leicester on Boxing Day and kind of those first few fixtures at the end of December going into the new year, and like really sort of mundane wins that people won't remember. I remember watching the Wolves 1-0 at Anfield with the goal that was disallowed, the Mane one, and the Sheffield United, which I think people see is just kind of Liverpool were expected to win those games, and they won 1-0 and 2-0, and it wasn't that spectacular, but that was just as important as beating Leicester, because those games came in such quick succession with so little rest in between. And I think once they sort of cruised through, we've seen almost every year, really, in January, Liverpool have a bit of a wobble under Klopp. And this time they just sort of, they did the Leicester thing after the Club World Cup, and they just came back and they did Wolves, they did Sheffield, and then I think there was United, Spurs, West Ham away, Wolves away again after that. And I think, it was those, I think, sort of less glorious, less spectacular wins that will be glossed over, but sort of, like Dan says, are all part of that kind of the body of work, which I think just shows how far ahead they are of the rest. And I think the other thing to point out in all of this is that Liverpool weren't guaranteed to get their moment anyway. It's quite possible that they would have just won the league with Man City drawing at home to Burnley or someone like that, and we just watched that and the clock ticks down, and it's 1-1 at the Etihad, and that's it. We get our moment then. So we were never guaranteed to have this spectacular finale anyway.
See, I kind of want that to happen now. That's sort of where I'm at. I want Sean Dyche to get a 1-0 at the Etihad, and Liverpool are champions, and it's just a case of great. You know what I mean? I'm watching it in my trackie. He's just like I would have been. It's crazy, isn't it? The difference in conversations before all of this happened. You know, pre-COVID, and one of the legitimate discussions was Man City versus Burnley's on at 3:00 on a Saturday. Where do we want to watch it? Do you know what I mean? If Liverpool can win the league, if City drop points against Burnley, where are we going to watch it? Because I'm not watching it on a dodgy Fire Stick. You know, I'm watching it somewhere on a dodgy Fire Stick in a pub, at least. Do you know? So I think that's fair enough.
Have they confirmed yet whether they're going to do the social distanced trophy lift? Because if they do that, I'm out on that.
I'd rather not win it. Football, it's like watching Black Mirror via football. It's just not. Really quickly, Ollie, was there a moment for you where you sort of, other than the obvious ones, or was there a light bulb moment, or was it just?
No, I feel like Joel said that the Wolves away one. Now you mentioned that as a big one, because it's just like it's almost a combination of what they both said. It's the relentless mentality. We've never had a side ever that just has. We've always had teams that can get up for the big moment, match-winning players, great days at Anfield, but just the relentlessness of kind of those mid-era Fergie teams where it's just like they just cannot lose. And everyone is now gathering ready for them to lose, all excited, everyone rooting against you, and just they do not let it happen. And I think that's the the hallmark of the team. And we just never have had a team like that.
Very Thanos in the Avengers, isn't it? It's sort of, inevitable. Because that's what I felt like when Firmino scored that. It was just like, surely, I don't know what the record was at that point. I think it was probably 21-1-0. And I'm thinking, well, 21-2-0 is absolutely fine. What Wolves are giving Liverpool a really good game. It could have gone either way. And then Firmino just pops up with 7 minutes to go and scores that goal. And it's like, this is unfair. Like, it's almost like this isn't really fun anymore. It's like, it's a cheat. You know what I mean? It's a cheat on a game. Good chat, lads. Last thing then, before we go for this episode, just in general around the Premier League, have you got any sort of things that you think you're going to see? I know we're talking a little bit about what's Guardiola going to do tactically. Is there a team that's going to turn up and be like the Monsters out of Space Jam? What are we looking at here in terms of what are the big surprises going to be? What's the surprising things you're expecting?
One thing I'm really interested in is this Aston Villa situation, because I think they're going to fire the manager at some point. And then you got this really weird national conversation that's going to happen about should you be firing people during COVID? Why did they not do it when they had a 3-month break? How does he actually implement a new philosophy at a time when they've got all this distancing going on? So someone is going to sack a coach down the stretch to try and save the season, I think. And that's going to be really bizarre. I don't look forward to the conversation, by the way, because that'll be brutal. But
do you reckon they just send a text?
Yes.
Sort of the chairman's like, Christian Perslow's just socially distanced. You know what I mean? It's just sort of just
John Terry will come in with his shimmies on and full kit on. That's how we all know. John Terry's pulling his shin pads up.
That's what'll happen, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Nailed that.
That's not a wild take. That's an absolutely nailed on certainty. I'm really interested in general about how teams have adapted to this whole period, training wise, tactically. You back Liverpool. You've got that confidence in Liverpool that they will have done everything to the letter in terms of they know exactly how to get the most out of them from a sports science point of view and all of that kind of thing. But it's going to be interesting to see if maybe there's a team maybe a little bit lower down. I mean, I don't think there's many bad managers in the league anymore. You look at the managers who are sort of in that relegation dogfight, and you look like Graham Potter, who's meant to be a really, progressive manager. You look at, Hassan Hootel to a degree, but they're not really in a dogfight. But there's going to be someone somewhere. Nigel Pearson, I know you're a big fan of him, Ollie, but there's going to be a team somewhere that's dropped off because they just haven't had the clue how to deal with this and how to train players.
I'm interested to see what impact the communication has. We've written about the Kimmich quotes about how different it is and how you can actually hear each other and hear the manager. And will someone get caught out who's considered a great tactician who becomes somewhat of a fraud because now his players can actually hear him and what he's actually deciding to do in the game is not having the impact they want? Are there players who just, not transform their game but go to a different level because they don't deal so well with having the fans around, or because the two centre-backs are really good at communicating but they often can't hear each other, or they don't do well with communicating through body language as opposed to actually speaking? So I think that kind of stuff will be interesting to find out.
I'm really interested by the acoustics of it. I think you can, from the snippets we've got of Liverpool in the games they played against each other and Blackburn, you can sort of hear the press as much as see it now. You can hear that when that moment is sort of simulated in training onto a pitch, you hear it. You hear the goal from the likes of Linders and people on the pitch and stuff like that. And I think Liverpool will be one of the most vocal. I think for me there's no surprise that we're heading into a Merseyside derby with, touch wood, no injuries, and Everton are basically walking around Stanley Park looking for people who can throw a pair of boots on. That will probably have a younger average age than the squad they've got now. So I'm not trying to disparage our neighbours across the road in any way, but I do think that there is, when we talked about Salah at the top of the show and average ages and stuff like that, conditionally I think we're far ahead of the majority, if not all, of the league in terms of how we prepare, and I think that will fit into things like mentality also. So I think that's what will give us the edge, and I think it'll ensure that we get the job done soon as.
there's something interesting around Ancelotti, isn't there? You know, we don't really want to talk about the derby because, you know, there will be other shows on the Blood Red channel which you'll be able to listen to. But we might as well just touch upon it a little bit here, guys. With Ancelotti, it is interesting because it could go one of two ways. I mean, I don't know what you reckon, Joel, but I could see him either pulling off an absolute tactical masterstroke. He's done it before with Napoli. You know, he also plays that three at the back, and that's how he keeps Mane and Salah quiet. But at the same time, he might have just been going absolute, you know, sort of head deep into Netflix and has rocked up a Finch Farm and has just sort of gone, I'm a good manager. You play for me. I'll give you the good team, so off you go. Because they're not a bad team. You know, Everton are not a bad team. On paper, they're a decent team. But it's just that, you know, as Dan says, I think there's maybe a couple of warning signs there. And they've always sort of, certainly in recent seasons, been concerned about the level of injuries. You know, the fans, I know that some of the fans sort of can't believe how many injuries they've had. But it's going to be interesting to see what sort of thing Ancelotti's been doing in lockdown.
Yeah, I saw something the other day saying, I can't remember how many, but it's about 3 or 4 of their sort of supposed defensive midfielders. So I think like the likes of Delph, Gabamin, there's at least a couple of others, but basically they don't have anyone to cover their defence, and the defence is not very good as it is. So I don't know if you're going to end up with a situation where Ancelotti's going to have to play like Tom Davis and Sigurdsson in front of a back four, which just makes you think, I mean, yeah, I dread to think what we're going to do to them if they line up like that. I think the other really interesting thing is, thankfully, it is at Goodison, which obviously was very much in the balance for a while. But I think you'll see very starkly there what kind of impact that has on the match, because I know our home record against Everton under Klopp has been generally brilliant, but it feels like we only won once there under Klopp. I think it was the Mane 94th minute winner, and since then they've been horrible games, generally 0-0.
That's the only goal since the 3-3.
Yeah. 0-0s where not a lot has happened. Really generally.
It's the 1-1, the Ings were a few 1-1, yeah.
Yeah, really frustrating games. Obviously, there was the one last season where we had the chances to win, but Salah just didn't want to score that day. I think the other thing that a couple of people have spoken about in terms of the no fans thing as well is that how it might benefit some players that we don't necessarily think. So some players who might sort of buckle under the pressure as such. But when there's no one there, and effectively we speak about the training ground feel as a negative thing, but maybe for some players not having 50,000, or there's not be 50,000 Goodison, but loads of people screaming at him basically every time he's on the ball might make some players come out of their shell a little bit more. I am intrigued. I think Everton's injury thing is what kind of makes me think, even if both teams are a little bit rusty, I think I'm going off the basis of our game against Blackburn, but we did look in decent.
Those Champions League contenders.
Yeah. I think that they look pretty sharp, and I think Ancelotti can be the best tactical manager in the world, but if he's not got the players, I think we'll have too much. And I think, as I said, the motivation will be there to go out and get it done ASAP. So it's
kind of so win-win for Liverpool. They either win, obviously, which is great. If they were to lose, then it completely and utterly blows Everton's argument that this season doesn't matter out the water. Because if they ever did celebrate the first derby win in 10 years, the easy rebuttal would be, Liverpool won the league. And there's no, if there's an asterisk against Liverpool's title, there's an asterisk next to the odds.
The other strange thing about it as well is the fact that it's an evening game. It was going to be a Monday night game, wasn't it, before in March, which obviously would have been under the lights at Goodison, whereas now we're having an evening kickoff on a Sunday night where it's going to be broad daylight the whole way.
The longest day.
Yeah, which is just going to be
amazing. It's going to be late when it finishes at 9:30. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I'll just leave the final word for Dan, because I reckon I'll tee him up here, because we have spoken about this before. But I actually think Everton might benefit from no fans in the derby, because I think that's been a big contributing factor for them over the past couple of years. I think that crowd certainly helps them sometimes, but I certainly think it hinders them a lot of the time, certainly in derbies.
Yeah, if they've got a demon, it's Liverpool. We know that from countless. Name the derby, Curtis Jones being the latest. But I also think it could help Ancelotti in the long run. In that, if he's good at one thing, Ancelotti, he's good at being pragmatic. The thing that I loved about him so far, just from a neutral point of view, was that when they threw that 2-0 lead away against Newcastle in the last 30 seconds, that he walked into them and basically said, well, I've lost the Champions League final after being 3-0 down. What are you so scared of? That's very Jurgen Klopp in its approach. And I think if he's going to maintain that, and he's going to use Everton as a long-term project, which we don't know or not whether he is. I think the best thing that he could adopt in terms of a mindset for his players and his board and his supporters through communication would be saying that we could get hammered 5-0 here, but it's part of something bigger. It's part of us learning. It's part of using this time to try and find ways of improving the squad and looking at different ways of playing and trying to basically root out the players that aren't going to make it. And if they are, I mean, let's have it right. They should be able to take that on the chin. They've suffered every which type of form of humiliation before from Liverpool. So you know, getting hammered at home isn't going to do any more. They want to fight, but without the fans there, like you say, Chris, it is a possibility for them to just sort of let's use this time to deeply root out where we're going wrong and try and use it to put it right. And I think they've got the perfect excuse really with injuries. So we'll see.
I think Andre Gomez doesn't make forward passes, without the fans, and that's not to disparage him, but he doesn't get.
I'm going to disparage him, by the way, because he's the most overrated footballer in the Premier League, possibly Europe.
Well,
I think he scored about 6 goals his whole career. He is criminally overrated.
We were doing really well then, Sam. We were doing really, really well.
I want to shut up now. I forgot we were on a podcast and not on a morning call.
Maybe that's what we should rename the podcast, just the morning call. I think legal will have a problem with some of the morning calls that we have. So yeah, that is the first ever episode of Liverpool. Maybe the first ever episode. We did have the draft, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Maybe 1.5. Talking about overrated midfielders, that was when Ollie picked Ince and then Murillo.
Stand by it.
As well as a number 10.
I'll go back into the archives for that one.
Don't forget on Anelka, that was a great show.
It was a good show. So thank you very much. Please tell us, your thoughts about this podcast. We're going to be doing it every week. Hopefully the four of us. We've got Kai Delaney behind the booth today, who's sat there and listened to us waffling. So a big thanks to him for sorting this out as well. All left to say from myself, Kristian Walsh, from Joel Rabinowitz, Oliver Connolly, Dan Morgan. Stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the Premier League season. We'll be back next week. Take care.